For 16 years, I believed I had built a strong, loving marriage with my wife, Sarah. We had a beautiful daughter, Emma, who meant the world to me. But 2 years ago, everything unraveled in the most devastating way possible. It started with a single message. Sarah had left her phone unlocked on the kitchen counter while she was in the shower. A notification popped up from someone named Mark. "I can't wait until we can be together properly. I've missed you for 20 years. My heart pounded as I stared at the screen. Something deep in my gut told me to check further. What I found shattered me. The message history was filled with declarations of love, intimate photos, and details of their secret meetings at hotels while I was at work or away on business. Mark wasn't just some random fling. He was Sarah's high school boyfriend, the man she claimed had always been her true love. For 6 months, she had been carrying on an affair behind my back, reliving some fantasy of a lost romance. When I confronted her, she didn't deny it. She didn't even seem remorseful. Instead, she broke down crying, not from guilt, but relief. "Mark is my soulmate," she said, looking me straight in the eyes. What we had was comfortable, but it was never passionate. 16 years of marriage, reduced to comfortable. The word cut through me like a knife. The divorce was bitter and drawn out. Sarah wanted to move in with Mark immediately, and she fought for full custody of Emma. I refused to let that happen. I fought hard for shared custody in one, but Sarah wasted no time spinning her own version of events to our daughter. She framed the affair as fate's way of correcting a mistake, painting me as a bitter, resentful ex who was standing in the way of her happiness. The wedding bombshell. Fast forward 2 years, and life had settled into something resembling normal, until Emma came home one evening and dropped a bombshell. "Mom and Mark are getting married next month," she said hesitantly. "They asked me to be a bridesmaid." Before I could even process that, she added, "Mom said Mark is her true love. She told me sometimes people make mistakes and marry the wrong person, but fate always brings them back to who they are meant to be with." I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. Sarah wasn't just rewriting history. She was teaching our daughter that our entire family had been a mistake. And worse, Emma had absorbed that lesson. When I told her I didn't think it was appropriate for her to be part of the wedding, she snapped. "You're just bitter because Mom found real love and you're alone." That cut deeper than anything Sarah had ever said to me. Yes, I hadn't dated much since the divorce. I had been focused on healing, on being a father. But to hear my daughter use my pain against me, it was unbearable. Sarah, of course, was furious. She called me repeatedly, accusing me of using Emma to punish her, of turning our daughter against her. My parents suggested I let Emma participate to keep the peace, but my brother saw things differently. "Sarah has some nerve asking you for anything after what she did," he said. A difficult conversation. That night, Emma and I had a terrible fight. She locked herself in her room, crying, refusing to talk to me. The next morning, she left for school without a word. I couldn't focus at work, my mind spinning with what to do. Eventually, my boss noticed something was off and asked if I was okay. I found myself telling him everything. He gave me one simple piece of advice. Talk to Emma. Really listen to her. Don't just react from your own pain. That evening, I knocked on Emma's door and asked if we could talk. At first, she shrugged and avoided my gaze, but when I gently asked for just 15 minutes, she sat down at the kitchen table, arms crossed. I took a deep breath and apologized. I shouldn't have reacted the way I did. I was hurt, but that's not your fault. She hesitated, then whispered, "Dad, I don't want to be stuck in the middle of you and Mom forever." That hit me hard. I asked her why being in the wedding mattered so much to her. What she told me next knocked the wind out of me. Mom said if I'm not in the wedding, it means I don't support her happiness. She said you're trying to turn me against her and Mark, and if I let you, I'll regret it when I'm older. Sarah was using guilt to manipulate our daughter. But instead of getting angry, I asked Emma one simple question. What do you want? Not what Mom wants, not what I want. Just you. Tears welled in her eyes. She admitted she felt weird about the whole thing. She didn't like how Mark was always trying too hard to be her friend. She didn't like how Sarah talked about me when I wasn't there, calling me controlling and bitter. But she was scared of disappointing her mom. I told her she didn't have to choose sides. Whatever she decided, I would support her If she wanted to be in the wedding, I'd help her get ready and even drive her there myself. If she didn't, I'd handle Sarah. Emma burst into tears and hugged me. I need time to think, she whispered. The truth comes out. The next day, Sarah showed up at my door, seething. You're ruining my special day, she hissed. You're using Emma to punish me. I stayed calm. Emma is making her own decision, and we both need to respect that. Sarah scoffed. She's a child. She doesn't get to make adult decisions. She's old enough to understand what happened between us. I counted. She's old enough to have feelings about your wedding. And she's definitely old enough to decide if she wants to be part of it. For a brief moment, I saw something in Sarah's eyes. Shame. But it was gone as quickly as it came. Then she dropped another bombshell. Mark and I are starting a family. I'm pregnant. Emma needs to accept that this is her family now. I was speechless. Sarah had betrayed our marriage, and now she expected Emma to embrace this new reality like nothing had happened. Later that night, Emma made her choice. I don't want to be in the wedding, she said. It doesn't feel right. I promised her I would handle Sarah. And I did. Sarah lost it when Emma called to tell her. She accused me of poisoning our daughter and threatened to take me back to court for full custody. Emma was in tears, convinced she had done something terrible. I called my lawyer immediately. He assured me Sarah had no ground for full custody, especially given Emma's age. He also told me to start documenting everything. But the worst was yet to come. Sarah's family launched a full-scale attack, sending Emma cruel messages, calling her selfish and ungrateful. Her aunt even created a group chat specifically to guilt-trip her. Emma had been enduring it for days in silence. Then Sarah called. You're choosing camping over my wedding? After everything I've done for you, she screamed. Emma was crying. I took the phone. Sarah, you need to stop this now. She spat back. Maybe if you weren't poisoning her, she'd understand family loyalty. I laughed bitterly, like the loyalty you showed when you cheated. There was silence. Then, in an eerily calm voice, she said, Mark is picking him up tomorrow after school. She's staying with us until the wedding. I hung up and called the school immediately, then my lawyer. Then I started preparing for the next battle, because this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. As I sat in my lawyer's office, waiting for Mark to arrive, I had no idea what to expect. I didn't trust him, not after everything that had happened. But the email he'd sent, claiming that Sarah had lied about the pregnancy and that there were things I needed to know, was enough to bring me here. When Mark finally walked in, he looked terrible. His eyes were bloodshot, his face drawn with exhaustion. He carried a thick manila folder in his hands, gripping it like a lifeline. Without a word, he set it down on the table in front of us. I should have done this months ago, he muttered, barely above a whisper. I'm sorry. Cautiously, I reached for the folder and flipped it open. What I saw inside made my stomach drop. Screenshots, pages and pages of text messages between Sarah and her friends, stretching back to before our divorce. Conversations where she detailed how she had planned everything, the affair, the lies, and the manipulation. One message, in particular, made my hand shake as I read it. I'll tell the court is emotionally absent. Emma's old enough that if I coach her right, the judge will listen to her. I glanced at my lawyer, who was skimming through the messages with an unreadable expression. Then, more messages, ones where Sarah gleefully bragged about how she was using Emma as leverage to get more money out of me in the divorce. But the worst part? The so-called pregnancy. He's been dragging his feet about setting a date, but a baby changed his mind real quick. She had written to a friend, followed by laughing emojis. I felt sick. It was all a lie. My lawyer, a man who had seen more than his fair share of ugly divorces, muttered under his breath, Jesus Christ. For a long moment, I just stared at the pages in front of me, trying to make sense of it all. Finally, I turned to Mark. Why are you showing me this now? I asked, my voice hoarse. He ran a hand over his face and let out a long breath. Because I saw what she was doing to Emma. I frowned. What do you mean? Mark leaned forward, his voice heavy with regret. The night of the wedding, Sarah,